SLT within online learning සහ online working සඳහා ඇදහිය නොහැකි data දීමනා GB 30ක් රුපියල් 195යි GB 100ක් රුපියල් 490යි අඩුම මිලට වැඩිම data SLT වෙතින්
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු
Tonight, the two-way street. The EU delegation cries foul over imports restrictions, expresses concerns over Resolution 30/1 and alludes to the future of Sri Lanka's GSP Plus concessions. A solid future. President Gotabaya tells the new Chinese ambassador that Sri Lanka's future will remain investment-centric and not built on a foundation of debt. Back to school. The Education Minister announces reopening of schools only in virus-free areas from the 23rd of November, with the Western Province and isolated areas left out. The right ingredients. State Minister Cabral issues a challenge to the private sector.
Investment is not only the responsibility of the Board of Investment. It's not only the responsibility of the government and ministers.
While the CSC chairman says budget incentives should see more investment in flows.
Most attractive is the incentives for minimum threshold projects. So this should hopefully provide more inflows into the country.
All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 19th of November 2020.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando. Moving on to your top stories for tonight. The Colombo-based heads of missions representing the European Union and its member states have issued a statement saying that the government's import ban is not in line with World Trade Organization regulations. The statement issued on the EU delegation's website today expressed concerns over Sri Lanka's withdrawal of support for the United Nations Human Rights Council Resolution 30/1 as well.
The delegation of the European Union in Sri Lanka and the Maldives has taken up the issue of the country's imports ban through a statement released on its official website. The statement revealed that the delegation had, in meetings with Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, reiterated its long-standing support for Sri Lanka as a reliable partner, including through over €1 billion in grants over the last 25 years, notwithstanding its member states' bilateral assistance. It reminded the government that the EU is a crucial economic partner for Sri Lanka, given that it enjoys competitive duty and quota-free access to the EU market through the GSP Plus facility. The statement added that this has resulted in the EU being the second biggest export market for Sri Lanka worldwide, with a positive trade balance of more than €1 billion in 2018 and 2019. Further, while reminding the government that trade is not a one-way street, the delegation stated that current import restrictions are having a negative impact on Sri Lankan and European businesses, as well as on foreign direct investment. The delegation added that the import ban also serves to impair Sri Lanka's efforts to become a regional hub and also negatively impacts Sri Lankan exports by constraining the import of raw material and machinery. It also stated that the government's prolonged import ban is not in line with the World Trade Organization regulations. Further, the statement also highlighted concerns over Sri Lanka's withdrawal from the United Nations Human Rights Council Resolution 30/1, adding that the rule of law and a vibrant civil society are essential in this regard. With that, the delegation also expressed hope of continuing its deep engagement with Sri Lanka, in line with shared international commitments and obligations.
Safeguard hand sanitizer නවතම නිෂ්පාදන පෙළ නීරෝගිමත් දිවියකට ලංකාවේ පළමු වරට හඳුන්වා දෙන මැලිබන් වෙජි ක්‍රැකර්
Crunchy veggie.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that his main priority is to spearhead a development drive based on investments instead of borrowings. He made these comments during his meeting with the newly appointed Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka at President's house today.
The newly appointed ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Sri Lanka, Chi Jen-hong, presented his credentials to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at President's house this morning. During the discussion, the President stated that priority has been given to an investment-centered development drive instead of obtaining loans. The head of state also highlighted the immense opportunities available in the fields of agriculture, communications, technology and education in the country. During the meeting, President Gotabaya also requested the ambassador to support the achieving of rural development in the country aimed at uplifting the living standards of rural communities, similar to programs launched by the Chinese government. In response, Ambassador Chi stated that his government is ready to make maximum possible contributions towards the success of Sri Lanka's economic and social development efforts. The ambassador also added that the main aim of the Chinese government is to see Sri Lanka develop into a prosperous nation.
State Minister Ajit Nivard Cabral says the onus is on the private sector to bring in investment to the country, given all the incentives such as tax breaks that were included in the recent budget 2021 for this purpose. Speaking at a post-budget webinar today, the State Minister added that although the government has inherited what he termed tough conditions, he is confident of overcoming them and moving ahead with the country's development.
We have inherited some tough conditions, but the need is to not stray from the original theme of our government, which is to usher in prosperity. I remember during the time of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, there were several roadblocks that were in our way. There was a global financial crisis, economic crisis. We had our own war to deal with. So it was not an easy passage. But yet we were able to manage a growth rate of 6.8% on a yearly basis and ensure that all our macro fundamentals were brought into shape. I would like to allay any fears of people who sometimes suggest that Sri Lanka may be too ambitious in doing what it's doing and we need to go and hold somebody's hand in order to do what we are hoping to do. I want to allay their fears and say if we are focused, we have enough people in our country who are qualified, who are experienced, who are able to take Sri Lanka forward in this fashion. We want to see growth being done through the government. We want to see growth even more through the private sector. The private sector has been given an enormous amount of space as well as incentives to come and deliver on this growth story. They have to deliver that. You got to bring in investment to this country. Investment is not only the responsibility of the Board of Investment. It's not only the responsibility of the government and ministers. It's your responsibility too. Just today or yesterday, the new airport expansion was launched. It's a $131 billion, almost $600 million investment, which is going to drive this country forward. Tomorrow, the tire factory in the Hambantota area is going to be launched. That's another $300 million investment. So COVID has not put a dampener on these projects. Everyone knows that COVID will be a thing of the past soon. So in the same aspect of things, I think Sri Lanka should move forward, and I would, at the beginning itself, request that you should also be drivers of this movement to bring investment into this country. And to do that, we have given plenty of incentives and certain exemptions, incentives, so that people can really get down to that.
Senior Director of the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, Uday De Silva, says that the tremors experienced yesterday in the area of Ambakote in Pallekele was a minor 2.0 on the Richter scale that posed no threat to public safety. He added that while similar tremors were reported earlier from the same area 2 months ago, they were a naturally occurring phenomenon and were not linked to any quarrying activity from dolomite mines located in the area.
Yesterday around 9:30 am, a minor tremor was reported in Ambakote area in Digana near Kandy. It was reported in GSMB owned seismic monitoring stations in Pallekele as well as Mahakanadarawa in Mihintale. At the GSMB Earthquake Monitoring Center, we have analyzed it and its scale is reported to be around 2 in the Richter scale. Similar minor tremors were also reported in same area about 2 months ago. In Ambakote, Alutwatta Digana areas, geologically vast bands dolomitic marble are identified. These dolomitic marbles rocks are very weak rocks. These minor tremors are occurred due to releasing of pressure through these weak rocks like dolomitic marble. This type of tremors are not occurred due to the quarrying activities of dolomite quarries identified in Digana area. Currently, a special team has been dispatched to the Digana Ambakote areas, which comprise of geologists, seismologists as well as geophysicists to investigate the tremor as well as to identify the cause for these tremors.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. In more news, the opposition took aim at the government today over the absence of revenue-generating methods in the budget proposal, accusing the government of only depending on borrowings. In response, the government argued that the opposition acted in violation of the monetary policy when in power, accusing them in turn of being responsible for the downfall of the country's economy. These arguments were made during the ongoing debate of the second reading of the Budget 2021.
Today was the second day on the debate of the Budget 2021, with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa arriving to view the proceedings.
දැන් ආණ්ඩුව කියනවා 2021 දී රාජ්‍ය ආදායම රුපියල් බිලියන 2029ක් දක්වා වැඩි කරන්න යනවා කියලා. අපේ රටේ පසුගිය අවුරුදු 20ක අයවැය බලපුවාම අපි දන්නවා රාජ්‍ය ආදායම වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ 5ත් 15ත් අතරේ. එහෙම පසුබිමක එක වසරක් තුල මේ අදාහගත නොහැකි වර්ධනයක් කොහොමද අපිට විශ්වාස කරන්නට පුළුවන්? කාවද මේ රවට්ටවන්න හදන්නේ? දැන් අවුරුද්දක් බලේ හිටියා. බඳුන් කරේට සම්බන්ධයට නඩු දැම්මද?
නඩු දාලා තියෙනවා විශේෂ මහාධිකරණ ඔබතුමාලා පිටුවපු නඩුව ඉදිරියට යන්න බෑ සිතාසි දෙන්න බෑ අර්ජුන මහේන්ද්‍රන්ට එතුමා රට දාලා ගිහිල්ලා ඒක තමයි මේකේ ප්‍රශ්නය එන්න නඩු දාලා තියෙනවා නඩු කරන්නත් ලේස්ති ඔක්කොම හැරි කවුද ගෙනාවේ
මේ ආදායම හොයාගන්න උත්පාදන ක්‍රමයන් ගැන ආයුන්දෝ සඳහන් කළා නැහැ ආණ්ඩුව ඉතා පැහැදිලිව මේ අයවැය තුල යෝජනා කරලා තියෙන්නේ තවත් බිලියන 3000ක් අලුතෙන් ණය ගන්න. 2020 තුල මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අනුමැතියක් නැතුවත් මේ ආණ්ඩුව බිලියන 2000ක් ණය අරගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ අවුරුදු දෙකට විතරක් ගරු කතානායකතුමනි බිලියන 5000ක් ට්‍රිලියන 5ක් මුදල් උත්පාදනය කරන යෝජනා නැහැ. එකම විකල්ප දෙකයි. එකක් ණය ගන්න එක අනිත් එක ඔබතුමන්ලා යෝජනා කරන්නේ සල්ලි අච්චු ගන්න එක. මෙතෙක් කල් කරෙත් ওই දෙක විතරයි.
2015 තමයි අපේ ආර්ථිකයේ කඩාවැටීම ගරු කතානායකතුමනි ආරම්භ වෙන්නේ. විදේශ ණය අරගෙන ඒ ආණ්ඩුව වියදම් කළා. ඒ අනුමත කරපු ප්‍රතිපාදන සීමාව ඉක්මවලා ගෙවීම් කරා. ගෙවීම් කරා විතරක් නෙවෙයි ගරු කතානායකතුමනි බිලියන 243ක මුදලක් ඔවුන් ගිණුම්ගත කිරීම හිතාමතා අමතක කරා මූල්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්තියත් මේ රටේ ව්‍යවස්ථාවත් උල්ලංඝනය කළා තමයි එදා මංගල සමරවීර අමතුමා මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ කාර්යභාරය ඉටු කරේ.
Former Secretary to the President Lalit Veeratunga and former Director General of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission Anusha Palpita were today acquitted of charges related to the distribution of SIL attire during the 2015 presidential election. Delivering the verdict, the two-judge bench of the Court of Appeals ruled that there was no evidence to prove that the two defendants in the case had misappropriated state funds. In 2017, former Secretary to the President Lalit Veeratunga and former Director General of Telecommunications Regulatory Commission Anusha Palpita were sentenced to 3 years rigorous imprisonment by the Supreme Court on charges of distributing of SIL attire to temples across the island during the presidential election campaign in 2015. The duo were penalised 50 million rupees in addition to a further fine of 2 million rupees for the alleged misappropriation of 600 million rupees in state funds. Following this, Veeratunga and Palpita both filed petitions in the Court of Appeal seeking their acquittal. The petitions were taken up for consideration by a panel of judges comprised of Justice Kumuduni Vikramasinghe and Justice Devika Abiratna. After a detailed analysis of the submissions made by the petitioner and the Attorney General, Justice Kumuduni Vikramasinghe stated that the two defendants in the case are senior public servants and that the analysis of evidence and documents submitted did not reveal any misappropriation of state funds. Delivering the verdict, the bench pointed out that the 3 indictments filed against the defendants in connection with misappropriation of state funds had not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt and ordered the acquittal of the duo.
මම දකින්නේ එය පුද්ගලයෙකුට දුන් තීන්දුවකට වඩා මුළු මහත් රාජ්‍ය සේවයම තිබුණු අසාධාරණ බැඳීම් වලින් ඉවත් කරා කියලා. ඒ නිසා මම මගේ සහෝදර රාජ්‍ය සේවකයන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ හරි දේ කරන්නට බය වෙන්නට එපා. Tamanට වාසියක් වෙන ආකාරයේ තීරණ නොගන්නේ නම් මහජනතාවට පමණක්ම වාසි වෙන තීරණ ගන්නේ නම් මා දකින්නේ නැහැ එහි වැරද්දක්.
දේශපාලඥයන්ට පුළුවන් ප්‍රතිපත්ති තීරණ ගන්න විතරයි. අපි රජයේ සේවක විදිහට අපි තමයි ප්‍රතිපත්ති ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ. ඒ නින්දා මම හිතනවා මේක ඓතිහාසික තීන්දුවක් ගරු අභියාචන අධිකරණය ලබා දුන්නේ.
A special ambulance service is to operate from tomorrow to provide assistance to the people in isolated areas within the Colombo Municipal Council limits. In the meantime, Sri Lanka recorded 3 COVID-19 related deaths yesterday, increasing the toll to 69.
As the number of COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka continue to rise, 3 more COVID-19 deaths were reported yesterday. All the victims were reported to have had existing health conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure. In the meantime, 327 infections were detected yesterday, with Colombo once again recording the most cases with 157. Apart from Colombo, 111 infections were reported from Gambha, 6 from Ratnapura, 3 from Gaul, and 2 each from Kaluthara, Anuradhapura and Matara. Further, 1 infection each were reported from Puttalam, Badulla and Kurunagala. In another development, a special ambulance service is to be launched in isolated areas within the Colombo Municipal Council limits. The Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardana, revealed that the ambulance service operations will commence tomorrow, while more details can be sought through its hotline 011 3422 558. In the meantime, Chief Epidemiologist of the Epidemiology Unit, Dr. Sudat Samaravira, states that the rapid antigen test kits will be used for preliminary diagnosis of patients entering hospitals who may be suspected of COVID-19 infection.
We have started to use antigen-based rapid diagnostic tests to identify COVID-19 patients. One of the main important category that we can use this is the first level contacts of or close contacts of a non-COVID-19 patient. We use this in certain instances. One instance is that when the patients are admitted to the hospital suspicious of COVID-19 with clinical symptoms, then we can use this as a preliminary test to identify whether they are COVID-19 patients or not. Some people who are coming to the OPD and need not get admitted but with COVID-19 like symptoms, we can use this antigen test to detect any COVID-19 patients among them.
Meanwhile, the country's total number of active COVID-19 cases now stand at 5,673. Further, 12,903 patients have recovered and been discharged from hospitals so far.
In good news for parents, the Minister of Education, Professor G.L. Peiris, announced today that schools will reopen for the third term for the students of grades 6 to 13 on the 23rd of November. However, the minister revealed that this will not apply to schools located in isolated areas or the Western province.
With the third term of schools originally scheduled to commence on the 9th of November, a decision was taken by the government to extend holidays for a further 2 weeks owing to growing COVID-19 cases, resulting in isolation orders being imposed in several areas. With that, the Ministry of Education announced that schools located in non-isolated areas can reopen for grades 6 to 13 classes.
නොවැම්බර් 23 වනදා බස්නාහිර පළාතේ පිහිටලා තිබෙන පාසල් අපි දැනට විවෘත කරන්නේ නැහැ. උදකලා කරලා තිබෙන පොලිස් වසම්වල පිහිටලා තිබෙන පාසල් හැර අනෙක් පාසල්වල 6 ඉඳන් 13 ශ්‍රේණිවලට පන්ති ආරම්භ කිරීමට පුළුවන් නොවැම්බර් 23 වනදා. ඒ පාසල් සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒ ක්‍රමවේද ගැන තීරණය ගැනීමේ වගකීම එක් එක් පාසලේ විදුහල්පති ප්‍රමුඛ කමිටුවකට බාර දීම. ඒ වගේම අධ්‍යාපන පොදු සහතික සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගය පවත්වන දින දැන් අපි ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ දින තමයි 2021 ජනවාරි 18 සිට 27 දක්වා. හැබැයි මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැනට හුදකලා කොට තිබෙන පොලිස් වසම් තුල පිහිටලා තිබෙන පාසල් පිළිබඳ ගැටලුවක් තිබෙනවා. 10 11 ශ්‍රේණියේ පන්ති ඒ පාසල් ආරම්භ කිරීමට බැරි තත්ත්වයක් තිබෙනවා නම් අධ්‍යාපන පොදු සහතික සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගයට දැන් නියම කරලා තිබෙන දින ඒ විදිහටම තියා ගන්නවාද නැත්නම් ඒ පිළිබඳ සංශෝධනයක් අවශ්‍යද කියන තීරණය අපි ගන්නවා ඒ සතියේ දෙකක් තුල.
We'll return after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. In your business news, the chairman and director of Colombo Stock Exchange, Dumit Fernando, says that the government's budget has addressed the need of the hour by not increasing tax rates and providing many incentives that will aid many sectors. He added that incentives for foreign direct investors will facilitate more revenue flow into the country.
With the budget presented in Parliament earlier this week, Chairman and Director of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Dumit Fernando, says that the government's decision to not raise tax rates gives corporates breathing space to operate.
I believe the budget announced 2 days ago by the government should be applauded for a number of reasons. While it has been talked about as a development budget, I think it's very important to note that it has not ignored the need of the hour, which is that coming off a COVID-affected year, we have some significant concerns that the country needs to address, and this budget does that as well. First of all, the fact that taxes were not increased, I think will be of great help at the personal and a corporate level. Secondly, there have been incentives for local manufacturing, which will support some of the companies, especially small and medium enterprises, and there have been a lot of incentives to help finance those companies as well, which will go a long way in this time of need. In the longer term, clearly there is a development focus in this budget. I believe there are a lot of incentives. What is most attractive is the reintroduction of incentives for foreign direct investors, and that is small, starting at a very small or minimum threshold as opposed to very large projects. So this should hopefully provide incentive for more inflows into the country. Secondly, incentives given to value-added exports, including many manufacturing sectors, but also service sectors like the IT sector, I think will be tremendous opportunities for the country. Third, we are also seeing a lot of focus on areas like agriculture, like infrastructure, which are essential parts of developing our country, as well as incentives for areas like renewable energy, which we know will have to be the way forward.
Meanwhile, he went on to say that the government had for the first time in a long time provided targeted opportunities to the capital market, which aligns government intentions with that of the Colombo Stock Exchange.
There were, for the first time in a very long time, very specific and targeted opportunities created for the capital market through a budget. First of all, in terms of increasing the number of listings, there has been a great incentive provided through a reduction of tax for up to a 3.5-year period. And this, we think, will very much align the government intentions with those of the Colombo Stock Exchange. Secondly, as you all know, we launched the Sri Lankan Real Estate Investment Trust, or REITs. There were some issues that related to stamp duty and taxes that were preventing some of these REIT opportunities being taken up by property developers. The adjustments made in the budget also accommodate the REITs being created, and we are quite optimistic that we will see the introduction of actual REIT products in the market.
Stocks closed 0.77% lower during today's trading, with the all-share price index falling 47.33 points, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks fell 9.38 points. The rupee ended marginally steady at 184 rupees and 60 cents to the US dollar in the spot market today, after closing at 184 rupees and 60 cents yesterday. Here's a brief report on the market performance today.
Today also we saw another downtrend in the market as the SPI dipped by around 47 points, slightly higher level of downtrend than yesterday. So post budget we are seeing a bit of profit taking in the market. Pre-budget during the last 3 to 4 weeks we have seen a continuous uptrend, and the market has come again above the 6,000 mark. So with this, now post budget there seems to be a bit of a overall correction in the market. Turnover levels, however, has come to around 1.4 billion rupees today, slightly lower than the usual, and what we are seeing is when the market is coming down, there seems to be a bit of a dip in terms of turnover, and with that also the foreign participation also comes down. For the first time in a long period, we are seeing a net foreign inflow in terms of the foreigners, so it is around a small amount of 29 million rupees.
With that, we wind up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a good night.